Hey guys, welcome back to the Thriving in Love podcast, a podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. Today on the show, we have Ayesha Joshi, a somatic mindset practitioner specializing in Neuro-Linguistic-Programming and Timeline Therapy based in Manchester, England. Ayesha empowers professional, queer, trans, non-binary, and South Asian women confidently express their true selves, leading to a more fulfilling and authentic life. Ayesha, welcome. Thank you so much for being on my show today.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me.
How did you get started in this work? Like, were you always interested in becoming a therapist or a coach or a healer? Or, like, how did that journey come about?
My journey started 12 or 13 years ago now. It started when my dad passed away. And
I'm sorry.
it happened at a time in my life where I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. And didn't know. I've graduated from uni. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. And after my dad passed, it was a real, I was going to say an awakening. The awakening didn't happen at that point. It kind of plummeted me into more grief, more depression, and just like really
Would you call it
questioning.
like a dark night of the soul? Or,
Yeah, exactly. Like a real
yeah.
dark night of the soul that I thought I would never really come out of, to be honest with you, because things weren't so great up until that point anyway. And then it just
Mm.
got worse and ended up moving to South Korea. I think it was like 7 or 8 months later. And I was teaching English out there. My career mostly has been teaching. So I'm a primary school teacher by nature. And then I just had this calling to, when you just know that you're here for a deeper purpose and mission and you're just meant to do something else on this earth. And the more that I started listening and tuning in and kind of following the signs and following what felt right in me, which was really difficult because I then ended up choosing to leave my teaching career to try and follow whatever this was calling me. I didn't really know that it was going to look like coaching. So coaching and therapy are very different. I didn't want to go back to university and study to be a counselor or a therapist, but I found coaching through a yoga teacher that I was going to, I was doing yoga classes and she mentioned Neuro-Linguistic-Programming. And that really, really fascinated me because up until that point, a lot of my practices, a lot of my healing journey has been based and centered around more spiritual practices that I found on my journey. And then when I started looking at neuro-linguistic programming, I was like, okay, this really kind of ties in the sciencey part of what I believe, because I love that logical thinking. I don't so much feel it anymore, but I know when I started this journey and even quite early on, I never really wanted to fully surrender to or believe that there was something else more out there. I felt like I needed the scientific evidence. I don't believe that anymore. I'm like, no, I get it. Like, I'm with the fucking universe. I don't need anyone to validate
Ooh,
that or
baby.
I don't need evidence for that anymore. I know that it's true. But I do love science. I love learning. I do love the factual elements of it. The people that I connect with, the people that I work with, my friends, I know that they really resonate with that kind of sciencey, logical. That's kind of how we're taught, to think. So the neuro-linguistic programming kind of really married the two really nicely together. And I didn't know coaching was such a big industry when I went into it. Like I said, it wasn't something that I was fully seeking out. I wasn't seeking out to be a coach. I was just like, okay, this is what I want to do. I know I want to help people. I've had such a my whole life is complete. I've managed to completely transform my entire life that I feel like I'm just a completely different person now. Yeah, I found coaching and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to build. This is what I want to grow. This is my purpose. This is why I'm here. Yeah, that's kind of how it got started in a nutshell.
That's amazing. I love that you said that you had an intuitive call. Like, it was
Mm,
something nudging from the inside out, and then you listened and tuned in and you followed the signs and synchronicities, and that led you here. And, like, what
absolutely.
was that process like? Like, going from someone who, like you said, needed the science, needed the evidence, but then, like, I'm sure your mind and your ego was like, no, like, why are you doing this? You're wasting time. we have to move on to the next step in whether it's teaching or the path that you're already on. So,
Mhm.
like, was it that moment of like, I need my life to change? And that's what allowed you to listen to your intuition and your heart over the logic of your mind? Or was it like, I want more, I want something greater, I want like something more than what I'm doing now? And that's what led you to it.
I think it was a little bit of both. Things just got very, very uncomfortable, like around me. Like the
Yeah.
situation got so uncomfortable. And that was the driving force. Like, as much like I love teaching, don't get me wrong, like I still want to work with children one day. That is my passion. Like I love doing that. That was my passion. This is my passion now, but you can have more than one. But physically being in the classroom became unbearable. Going into school became unbearable. Like things that I really enjoyed doing just started becoming uncomfortable. Like I just felt
Yeah.
like the universe was putting me in really uncomfortable situations to push me out, to kind of birth me into something else, if that makes sense. And
It does,
absolutely, it was
because it's
also,
exactly what I experienced. Yes.
yeah. And but it was also the fact that I think I've always had this kind of innate belief that I want more and I want to do more and I'm here for more. Do you know what I mean? That's
Yes.
kind of like there in the
The
background as
impact.
well.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a mishmash of both, but I really felt like something was there, just like you need to get out of this, like, and
Yeah.
really kind of just following through that, as painful as it was.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that,
Mm.
because it resonates so deeply with me, and I'm sure so many of us who have gone through this death and rebirth that has been kind of forced upon us from the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Following the nudges. So thank you. So for anybody that's listening and if they don't know what NLP is, can you dive a little bit into that?
NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. The way to see it is that when we're born, we're always taking in information, and I think it's like 2 million bits of data or information that we take in every second, or something ridiculous it is.
Wow.
But through we have filters, so we've got our senses filter out the information based on our own experiences and what we've kind of gone through in life. So there's this question in NLP is like, is reality real? Because everybody's reality is different based on what your past experiences have been like and what your environment has been in, that you've grown up in, etc., etc. Because we've had all of these different situations and circumstances that have happened from before we were born to during that time we're in the womb, and then after. And all of those experiences from your mother, goes back to, present day, have all had a direct impact on us, and it affects how we view the world on the outside. And NLP kind of helps us to really reframe a lot of those limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. Those kind of really going back to, it's quite a specific set of processes that allow you to kind of tap into certain memories or events or situations where you first had that traumatic experience, or where you first felt that emotion, to be able to either clear it or remove it from your system, or reframe it and get a new learning or perspective on it, right? Because we all have these emotions and feelings that then drive our behavior, and that then can lead us to kind of, I guess, limiting ourselves in some sorts of way. So NLP is really great because it's quite a difficult process to like really capture in like just in a nutshell. But
I mean, I think you're doing a great job. I think, yeah,
because whenever I explain this, I'm like, I don't know if people are following or they get it, but
totally. Yes.
it's really kind of going into the unconscious mind. That's where our driving kind of force is. That's where our behavior, that's how we present ourselves in the world, comes from the unconscious. 95% of how we operate is unconscious. It's only 5% is consciously. So it's
That's
kind
wild.
of, yeah, exactly. So it's like the way that I see it, and the way that I kind of, with my coaching, is kind of bridging the gap between the unconscious and the conscious. So you are
Yeah.
aware of those driving forces and those behaviors, and understanding yourself at a deeper level. Why do you do this? Why are you thinking like this? Why do you feel that way? And kind of really reshaping it, and also making it into something that you want. Because a lot of the time our unconscious mind is formed from things from outside, external sources, and factors, and culturally in society, through parents, through family, through community, have really formed the way that we view and see the world and see ourselves. So it's kind of just stripping it all back, really. And that's kind of also where the somatics part in my coaching comes in, is really kind of unpeeling and uncovering those layers of yourself, you know, to
Yeah,
find out who you
definitely.
are and what's important to you. Yeah.
Is there a reason that you focus on South Asian and queer and non-binary people? I guess, like, what led you to choosing this as your target to help?
That's a good question. I've not been asked that question before, and I'll figure out how I want to say this answer, because it's really important to me, and I'm really glad you've asked, actually, because it's a really important question. It comes back to that whole intuition part, and I was actually working with a business coach towards the end of last year. Before I started working with her, I was having, like, you know, when you've got I mean, you know, when you've got your own business, when you're doing your own thing, you've got your dream, your passion, you're constantly dreaming about it, right? It's in your head 24/7. You're like dreaming up, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. I wish I could do this. And like, you've got all of these ideas and, you know, inspiration that's kind of floating around. And when I was kind of like more in the dream stage last year of just like really, I'd fall asleep just kind of thinking about what I'd like to do. And whenever I was kind of envisioning this, I always imagined myself sitting in a group or a circle with other South Asian women. And then the more that I started like allowing myself to kind of dream about it, when I say allow, you know, like kind of just letting myself get carried away with it, I started to realize that the women and people that I was sitting with were queer South Asian women. But when I started doing the work with my business coach, I realized actually that's what I wanted to do. And that's who I wanted to work. That was the kind of demographic I wanted to work with. And I didn't really understand why until I kind of, said it out aloud and admit it to myself that actually this is where I want to go. And, you know, I had my own kind of challenges with that, because it was like, oh, you know, what are people going to think? Like, what are they going to say? And, you know, is it too niche? Like I said, it wasn't like, oh, this looks like a good group of people to work with. It wasn't that at all. It was just something that, again, was just kind of brought to me by the universe. And like, again, when now I'm tapping more and more into it, and I'm really starting to understand the reason that this has been kind of presented to me, is because I do believe that I have queer ancestors. And I do believe, you know, especially in South Asian history and culture, the queer LGBTQ community, it wasn't called that back then, but that was there. It was prevalent in
Yeah, of
society.
course. Yeah.
Same-sex relationships were normal. Like, and then, you know, then the British rule came in, they colonized India, they brought their own rules and laws in, and then homosexuality became illegal and then was then criminalized. And
Wow.
so I know for a fact, like, you know, I have queer ancestors, and it's kind of,
Wow.
I feel like I've gone off on such a tangent here. But
No, this is fascinating. I love it. Please keep going.
and this is what I mean. I wish it was just like, oh yeah, you know, I did a little Google search and this is what popped up, but it's not.
Or like it could have been like your lived experience, like, oh, I am a South Asian queer woman, so I know what the journey is like, so I want to help others like that. But you took this to like a whole nother dimension, which is amazing. And I love it. Because
And
I believe that wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, when I'm on my plant medicine ceremonies alone, I am hanging out with my ancestors. And the reason I choose to be child free is because I received the
mm,
message that I'm the first woman in my entire lineage who even has the choice if I want to be a mother or not. So
wow.
they keep telling me, like, make sure that you are choosing it wholeheartedly and not doing it because it's expected of a woman to become a mother. So I
Mm,
trust me when you're talking about connecting with your ancestors and receiving that, like, they had liberation that was taken away from them, and you're in
exactly.
that lineage of like honoring and reclaiming that
Mm,
liberation for
mhm.
yourself and the women that you're coaching and empowering. Like, this is what it means to have a calling of like connecting with your ancestors and being like, all right, guys, I'm on this planet now. What do you guys want me to do? And they're like, well, this is the ideal life that we envision because this is what was taken away from us. You got to reclaim that. That's called generational healing and receiving those generational gifts of being a healer, being able to see somebody's wounds that you do, and through the NLP or whatever, which I'm sure now you're like, it's just a psychic gift that you have, that you're able to see exactly where somebody's wound comes from and allow, and you, through your questioning, through holding space for them, through your presence and your energy, you're able to help guide them to the root of these wounds so that they can heal and alchemize it. And that's what it means to be a coach and a healer today.
Oh, you just explained that so beautifully. Yes, exactly. All of that, and more. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And I've literally just got like goosebumps from head to toe because I'm like,
Yeah, my body was just like tingling the
yeah,
whole time.
same. What is happening? Because yeah, I feel like there's very few people that like really get it, you know. I haven't actually met someone who fully gets it. I've
Come
had
to
a lot.
LA, all of us are.
I think I need to. So yes, I mean, because my lived experience, I've been quite lucky with my own personal lived experience. And I say lucky because I've not really, not really faced any challenges or barriers in terms of family, society, community, friends. I haven't really. And I'm very fortunate. I know I'm very privileged to be in that situation. But yeah, so like I was saying, it's doing the work for the people who came before me, doing the work for the people now, and doing the work for the people who will come after me. And that's kind of what it boils down to, really.
So powerful. Like, wow, that's amazing. And like, you didn't have to honor that calling. And it's not easy. I think a lot of
Mm-mm.
people think that misconception of like, oh, it's so easy for you. You received your calling and you just stepped into it. And it's like, well, in this day and age, it's actually incredibly hard. One, I don't know about you, but like, I'm struggling with getting people to understand, even though it's not like I'm not licensed. So I'm trying to help couples understand like the common denominator of like what their issue is so that they can find harmony and peace and joy in their households. Because at the end of the day, when you have two adults in a relationship and they're struggling emotionally, it is their wounded inner child that is trying to communicate, but our adult minds don't think that
Mm-hmm.
way. They're like, no, but they piss me off and that happens and this, and it's like, yes, and the deeper root of why you're so triggered by this situation by your partner is because a version of you in the past didn't receive the comfort and validation that you needed. So now you're blaming your partner for triggering all of those wounds, which is like the point of relationships. So, like,
Mm.
I know you said that you come from like a privileged background where you didn't have to go through that. But at the end of the day, I believe it's still in our programming, like in our DNA. Like, I'm sure, like you said, oh, what are people going to think if I choose to go the route of queer
Exactly. Yeah.
women? So, like, can you talk a little bit about why do you think, even if we haven't lived in that experience, why is it, where does this programming come from, and why are we holding on to it as truth, and why are we
Mm.
allowing it to stop us from stepping into just simply doing the things that we want to do?
That's a really powerful question. I think a lot of our programming, we're such like faceted is, I don't know if I've said that word correctly,
Mm-hmm.
like beings. We're
Yeah.
multidimensional. There's so much to us. And I think that's kind of gets lost in today's world and the world that we live in. I kind of very briefly touched on it before, but we carry like stored memories and our DNA from like generations beyond us, if that makes sense, that have come before us. Sorry, I can't get my words out right.
I think in epigenetics they say like 7 generations of,
Exactly. Yes.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that exactly. So, and like
Mhm.
the generational kind of what's happened to your, not even thinking about your ancestors, just thinking about what happened to your parents, kind of their upbringing, what their
Yeah.
parents were like, and then looking kind of a little bit more back, what your great grandparents were like, and what their upbringing was, what were their beliefs, what was the environment that they grew up in, what kind of rules and and that kind of like filters through generation to generation to generation, right? And those beliefs and those thoughts and those feelings that are kind of passed on, those limiting beliefs, everything is passed down generation to generation. It's that programming. So your programming is not just your own programming. It's not just from the experiences that we've had from the minute we're born. It goes back even further than that. And it's kind of understanding that actually some of the burdens and traumas and things that I'm feeling or carrying or holding, they might not necessarily be yours, which is why it's even more important to kind of dig a little bit deeper and start unpacking it. And are you holding this guilt and shame because that's what you experienced? Or is it because of something that your grandparents experienced? Or, were they still holding on to some stigma or shame around, I don't know, maybe their sexuality or whatever it may be at that time, that has then carried through, and it's being able to clear that now, and having the knowledge
Mhm.
and wisdom and kind of the curiosity around why we hold certain beliefs. And it's really like when you start digging, I feel like it's you just find so much. But I think it's really important. I think it's really important to get, and this is something that I say all the time, is to get really curious, like why, or what makes me think that way, or what makes me feel that way, or why do I behave like this, or what triggers me, or why is this like, why have I responded like this, or why have I reacted like this? And not asking why as in kind of in that negative way, but why as in, okay, let me get curious about that. Can I maybe understand that a little bit more? Can I unpick that a little bit more? And it doesn't necessarily have to be right there in the moment, but not just kind of taking things as face value. People think, oh, I grew up like this is me, this is how I'm always going to be, or that's how my dad was like, so that's how I'm like. But why was your dad
Yeah,
like that? Why are you like that? What's caused your dad to have those, whatever it might be, positive or negative? Why?
I
I
agree.
don't know if
Yeah.
that fully answers your question, but
No, it does. And something I always come back to, and I've written this so many times, and I'm sure it's coming from like someone greater than me, something greater than me, is to constantly trade your judgment for curiosity. So I think we're always like first initial reaction is usually the surface level feelings that we have of like
Mhm.
judging others for something that, again, that reaction comes from our programming. So when you clock in that judgment and instead of reacting, create that pause in between to have that curiosity of like, oh, I
Exactly.
just felt a judgment in me. Let me
Mhm.
get curious about where this comes from. Does this come from my truth of what I know to be
Mhm.
true? Or is it because my mom told me that this is wrong? Or my grandma told me that, you know what I mean? Like, or is this something we picked up in
Yeah,
our upbringing? Or has society told me that, this is wrong? Has religion told me that this, has tradition, has culture? So, like, my whole body of work from my own lived experience with the clients that I do, it's like, that's exactly it. Where it's like, is this programming or is this what you choose to be true
true.
moving
Yeah,
forward?
exactly. Mhm.
And we can constantly reevaluate that over and over again. And something that I'm doing now with myself is holding a lot of grace to also change. So,
Absolutely.
like, something that I felt like I put my foot down for 2, 3 years ago is like, okay, can I soften that now and
Mm.
let it go? And, I
Mhm.
think that the biggest thing that people have a hard time believing is that people can change. So, what's your experience on that? Like, what gave you so much faith in believing that people were capable of change?
Because I changed so much.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, same. Yeah.
and you literally took the words out of my mouth, as in, like, I was just thinking that we kind of get so stuck in our own ways, and we think, and this is what I really love about the queer community as well, and kind of what I've found from, because I've not always identified as queer. I found that I was attracted to the same sex partner when I was 30. I'm now 35. So
Wow.
that journey's also been new for me, but it's understanding, and being on that journey, I've really started to understand, because I was someone that was very much like, things have to be black or white. It has to be yes or no,
Same.
or right or wrong. There was no in between. And because, like I said, I'm literally a different person compared to what I used to be like. I know change is possible. I know change can happen, and change can only happen if you want it to happen. If you
Yeah.
really want to change something in your life, you can make it happen without a doubt. And I know that for a fact, because that's what I have been able to do with all of the challenges that I've been faced with in my life.
Hmm.
It's taken me a very long time to get to the place that I am now. I've faced and overcome so much. And exactly like you said, just because I hold these beliefs and values and things now, I am absolutely okay with knowing that, do you know what, next week or next year, or, things are different. The thing is,
Yeah.
we are growing and evolving all the time, and we are part of nature. We are part of the earth. We are not meant to just stay stagnant and stay the same. And we are okay to change. And
Yeah.
me and my partner have conversations about that all the time, because people in relationships, it's like, I don't believe in, oh, we're going to be together forever. There's no such thing as
Same.
forever. Sorry if that sounds like really harsh, but there is
Well,
no
I
such
think
thing as forever.
it's romantic to choose your partner consciously all the time rather than just take them for granted because you expect them to be around
Exactly.
forever. I think
But
it's
I
more
think it was
romantic.
exactly, and it's also understanding that you are two people, like, separate of each other,
Yeah.
and you are going to grow through life, and you might be growing together for a very, very, very long time. Communicate, and me and my partner have a very, very, like, we communicate together all the time, often, about, how we're feeling, where we're going, our values, our dreams, our ambitions, whatever. Right now we're growing in the same direction, but who's to say in 20, 30 years, actually, my direction might go somewhere else. Hers might go in a different direction. That is absolutely okay, because as people, we grow. The things that we want change, the things that
Yeah.
we see change, the beliefs about ourselves change, the beliefs about the world change, and that's okay. It's okay. And I think that's why it's really important to really come back to yourself, to your core, what is true to you, what your values, what's important to you. That's like really setting the foundations to have a really strong sense of self, have a really good understanding about yourself, having a really good love for yourself, having that relationship with yourself, so that you know that it's okay. In the end, everything will be okay if you're okay with you.
100%. And more importantly, you'll know what you are willing to shift and change without losing that sense of self, without,
Mm-hmm.
and because I think that's what happens in relationships is like because we're trying to hold on to this connection for so long, and
Mm.
it gets to that point of you can either compromise your sense of self so much that you end up losing the true you, and then you end up feeling completely just burnt out, anxious, depressed, just like all of these like mental health issues, chronic illnesses that can
Mhm.
manifest from being so disconnected from our authentic selves. And I think that, the most loving thing we can do is not hold the people that we love back from staying true to their most authentic selves. And you're able to do that with so much love and grace when you understand that you're not going to be willing to compromise your authentic self just
Mhm.
for the sake of keeping a connection in your life, and knowing that connections and human interactions are here to bring us closer to our authentic selves, not take us away.
Mhm.
So yeah, you said that beautifully. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you talk a little bit about like how did your relationship begin with your partner, and what was that like being like, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm attracted to a woman." Like I don't under like that must have been such a huge identity shift and like so like wide open like shattering of like a reality. Like what was that
Yeah.
like?
Well, before I met my partner, I was intentionally single for about 7, 8 years. Like, I wasn't really interested. I'd had a very bad relationship history, just didn't know how to have a healthy relationship, and had never experienced a healthy relationship. And before I met my partner, really was doing a lot of work on myself already, and then started to kind of really tap into the relationship side of things. I was like, okay, Aisha, like what's happening here? Like, the same patterns, the same relationships keep coming in and out of your life, and they're all shit, and they're all making you feel shit, and you're shit, and everything's just fucking shit. So what's going on? The common denominator in all of those situations that I'd been in was me. And people don't like to admit that, it's very easy to blame. And I was very much that person, like, oh, they did this and they did that, and this happened to me, and blah, 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 blah. And then when I sat there thinking about it, I was like, none of these people are going to change my situation right now, because I'm still in this situation. So, like, what can I change? Okay, it's me. Like, I really needed. So I kind of just started doing the work on just myself. And when I was thinking about a partner, at the time, I'd been very lucky to find myself in a place and build myself up to a point where I was really content and happy with myself. So when it came to finding a partner, it wasn't out of the, like needing to be in a relationship or needing to find someone. I didn't need that. I wanted that eventually. I didn't realize it was going to happen as soon as it did. I knew eventually, maybe one day in my life, maybe I'd like to be with someone. I wasn't bothered about getting married. I wasn't really bothered about having children. But I started calling in a partner, and I don't know what it was, but I was kind of speaking to the universe, and I never referred to this person as a he or a she. I never said a husband or whatever. I just kept myself really open. I don't know why. I'd never been
That's
attracted to women
amazing.
before.
Wow.
I just knew I had to just keep my heart open, because I think I'd had my guard up this whole time. And that was also like really stopping me from calling in a true love. Yeah, I met my partner when I moved to Italy. She'd moved over to Italy as well from Hong Kong, and I'd moved over from the UK. We were working at the same school, and we were friends first. We were really good friends. As soon as I met her, I was like, I just knew immediately she was going to be in my life for a very, very long time. I just didn't know how. And yeah, it just kind of then blossomed into something more. And I was like, okay, this is weird. What's happening? But again, it was one of those things where I was just like, I'm just going with it. Okay, yes, it's really like, it is a bit, sorry, I am swearing a lot, but it was a bit of a head fuck.
Swearing is all good on this podcast. I love it. I swear a lot.
So yeah, I mean, like, our relationship hasn't, we've had to put a lot of work into our relationship, and we were together for some time, and then we actually broke up before that we then got back together, and now we're still together. So yeah, it's been a journey for us both, really. We've both had to unpack a lot in terms of kind of being in a same-sex relationship, being with each other.
That is crazy. Have you heard of the red string theory?
I have heard of it, but can you remind me again what it is?
Like two souls are just meant to connect no matter what.
Mm.
And when you shared that, she came from Hong Kong and you came from the UK, or where did you say you came from, right?
Yeah, the UK. Yeah.
Yeah. And like ended up at the same school and like met, and it's just like, what are the chances
Mm-hmm.
that you were both called to this place to move to, go to this school, teach at this school, and then you met, like, it's just so kismet. Like, I believe so much in, like, that when it's meant to be, it will be. And I mean, it's kind of like how it happened with me and my husband too. We just kind of like kept running into each other, and now it's just like no, and then it's like the universe is like yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's so cool. And I do think that the reason people come together, it's not this like beautiful soulmate connection that's like,
Mhm.
oh, wahoo, everything's amazing and like we're
Mhm.
so in love. And like I think that these soul contracts happen because these connections are meant to help you heal your own karmic lessons, your
Mhm.
karmic loops, and your karmic assignments, if you will.
Mhm.
And once those karmic assignments are done and completed, I believe that then sometimes that's when you move on, right? You move on from this connection. Or you can, if you're done with all your assignments and you're done with their impact and you have completed all your like lessons, then you get to just simply choose. Do we want to stay together and enjoy life
Mhm.
together and keep going? Or are we ready to like keep growing? I do believe like in destiny and free will. But again, that's like a whole nother tangent on its own.
Yeah. No, I
um,
agree as well. Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. So,
and
yeah.
like, everybody gets a moment in life where they get to choose. Do I want to grow or do I want to stay? If you have a lot to do in this lifetime and you haven't done anything, then your life is going to get harder. And
Mhm.
the universe is going to say, no, like you actually came here with the soul contract to heal these things. So we're not going to let you stay and stay comfortable in this life because you have things to do. That's what happened with me. Like your whole life gets ripped apart. It's like, damn,
Yeah.
I have no other choice but to sit and listen to something.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm like, stop fucking giving me things to do.
And I was like, I'm so tired.
I'm done. Please just leave me alone now.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it was a very like soul aligned connection that came into
Yeah.
your life at the moment that you needed it in order for you to
Mm,
expand your mind and open your heart wider
mm,
than you ever probably thought possible. And that is soul growth. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are getting married. Are you engaged? Is
We're
that
not
happening?
engaged. Um, we have spoken about it. I feel like a marriage is not something that we need to do or have. It will happen, I
Government
think.
does not need to get involved in your
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. I mean, the way that we live our life, both of us, and I'm really glad that, she's the same, is we're very intentional with the things that we choose to do, the way that we choose to live our life. And it's like, okay, if we choose to get married, why are we choosing to get married? And if we choose to get married, how do we want to get married? Like, I don't really buy into this whole, and no judgment to anyone who's done it. I've got friends and
Trust
family who've
me,
had
I get
big
it. Yes.
Indian weddings and stuff, like, but what's it for? What's the meaning? Like, having nice, place settings and flowers doesn't add any value or meaning to our relationship or to our love for each other. Like, it doesn't. I'm sorry, and I don't care about things like that. But
I
we would
agree.
probably get married and have just a very small intimate ceremony. We do want to start a family, so for that reason as well, like, we would get married, just for legal kind of purposes. It's very
Oh, that's so
unromantic.
cute.
But
I don't
yeah.
think it's unromantic. I think it's so romantic. You want to build a family together. So, like, that's what you do. And
Yeah,
the romantic
exactly.
part is that you choose that you want to create life on your terms with this person. And that's what my entire podcast is about. So, kudos
Absolutely.
to you.
Yeah, yeah. It's just not this fairy tale that, we kind of,
I think it's a modern fairy tale. I mean, I
yeah,
think that's the world that we're heading into as humans are evolving and growing. We're realizing that it's actually the most romantic thing you can do is find a partner who wants to break all of traditional norms with you. It's kind of like the most
absolutely.
romantic thing ever. It's like fuck the patriarchy, fuck all these norms, fuck all the rules and what it means to be in love. We're going to
Yes.
do it our way, and having a partner that's by your side and with that
Exactly.
sledgehammer with you.
Yeah.
Oof, that is
Yeah.
so romantic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you put it like that, yes. Yeah.
And I think those are the best love stories. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. Amazing. Well, how can my audience find you if they wanted to work with you? And what is the best way to connect with you?
I feel like the best and the easiest way is through Instagram. A lot of kind of people can find me on there. So my handle is at Ayesha Coaching. I've also got my website as well. I don't know if you want me to share the
No, I'll put all the links below.
You'll post it, yeah. So yeah, just through Instagram, my website, and that's it really. I kind of just mainly use those
Yeah.
two kind of platforms. And I do like free discovery calls. You can contact me on there, or DMs, or just want to find out anything else.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with my audience.
You're
And
welcome.
everybody has a great day. If you guys want to connect with Aisha, check out the links below. And thanks again.
Thank you.